It used to be the case that wherever in the world you were, no matter what time of day it was, if you scrolled through the hundreds of channels on your TV, you could always find one which was showing reruns of Scooby-Doo. Sure, times have changed and now you're more likely to come across an episode of The Simpsons, but there was a time when Scooby-Doo was red hot in terms of nostalgia. Coming at a weird time in Christmas of 2000 was Scooby-Doo Classic Creep Capers, published by THQ and developed by Terraglyph. Whilst I'm a big fan of the cartoon series, I'd often wondered how a Scooby-Doo game would work on Nintendo 64. The obvious answer is that it would be a point-and-click adventure, but by the time of the game's release, these really were the staple of PC games, and bar a few odd exceptions, mostly on the PlayStation 1, they just didn't seem to be an ideal fit for the Nintendo 64. The studio did have some great ideas for the game, however. Taking 3 classic Scooby-Doo storylines and also creating a brand new mystery for the game meant that the old and new fans got a real great sense of fan service, as well as some fun Easter eggs along the way which were a nod to other Hanna-Barbera classic toons. The gameplay consists of you taking control of Shaggy, with Scooby-Doo acting as your sidekick. Each of the game's mysteries is formatted very much like a cartoon episode. After a brief title screen, you're given a cutscene that sets the tone for the level and also begins to set the mystery in motion. In general terms, the mysteries themselves are very formulaic. You'll need to find clues and bring them back to the team, then find items to help you enter and access new areas, and explore and dodge enemies and spooks, which will haunt you. And if you get too spooked, then it's game over because Shaggy and Scooby-Doo will make a run for it. Once you have gathered all of the clues and solved the mystery, you'll need to set a trap for the bad guy before they are demasked in true Scooby-Doo fashion. This all sounds great and the developers would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for those pesky controls. Quite honestly, this is the biggest flaw in the game. Looking at it, you'd instantly get a sense of Resident Evil and get that feel to the game. And as the game switches cameras frequently as you switch between different rooms and areas, but the tank controls of Resident Evil series are nowhere to be seen here, and sadly they would have been ideal. Instead, you're expected to let go of the control stick each time the camera switches to a new position. This is because if you don't, then the movement from the previous screen is carried over, which can lead to you having a hugely disorientating movement range. I actually switched controllers several times without knowing this, thinking that my controllers had suddenly malfunctioned. This is particularly a problem due to the many times in the game where you need to outrun the bad guy. At multiple points in each mission, you'll be greeted by an enemy of the level's antagonist, who then chases you until you reach a safe place. The problem is that if you take your thumb off the control stick each time you enter a new screen, they quickly catch up with you, and your spook meter is depleted quickly. Thankfully though, to top up your meter again, there are Scooby Snacks which are dotted all over the place, which when eaten, will give you a boost once more. Not only this, when you can also find a kitchen, then you can play a quirky little minigame where you make sandwiches which almost completely refill your meter. Perhaps the strongest part of the game is its visuals. Whilst the game is in a fairly low resolution, there are no times in the game where you will encounter slowdown, and the style and level design is completely true to the source material. The animation is top notch, and each of the characters behaves exactly how you've seen in the cartoon. So Shaggy's long swinging strides and Scooby's shifty shuffle are well presented. The music too is very fitting of the cartoons. Obviously there's no epic scores or action-packed music, but the subtle and slightly wacky music fits each level really well, and it actually changes depending on the situation in the different rooms that you enter. There's a lot of it, and whilst aside from the main theme, which is a remake of the series theme, the rest of it doesn't become annoying, which is important, as there are some times in some puzzles where you will be stuck on for a long period of time. A disappointment though is the lack of in-game speech. The dialogue is presented in speech boxes, and aside from a few sound bites which are few and far between, you'll be left longing to hear the characters talk to really breathe some life into the game. Thankfully though, the dialogue is well written, and it's almost exactly the type of speech the characters would be expected to say. It's really hard to dislike Scooby-Doo Classic Creep Capers, but at the same time it feels like a real missed opportunity. The entire graphical style, level design and overall gameplay is well done, and the puzzles have a great difficulty curve which keeps you just below the level of rage quitting. But on the other hand, the controls are almost unforgivable. It makes what should be an easy to pick up and play game a chore at times to play, and you'll quickly lose count of the amount of hits you take from the poor controls rather than you not having the skill. Overall though, I still think it's a game that everyone should play, as there's not really much else like it on the console. Just be prepared to be somewhat disappointed. If you're a fan of the cartoon and like adventure puzzle games, I think you can overlook the flaws. But for everyone else, I really think you're going to be likely to give up well before the final goon is revealed. But how do you remember Scooby-Doo Classic Creep Capers? Like me, did you get an instant nostalgia kick just seeing the gang on a console, or did you feel that as a game it had missed the mark by having 3 of the 4 mysteries being repeats of classic storylines? As always, let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments section down below, and until next time.